Almost 250 years ago, the American Founding Fathers had the very unique responsibility of crafting a government almost entirely from scratch. Having cast out the tyrannous British regime, the Americans now had to decide what they wanted their government to look like, and, by extension, what they wanted their values to be, because they recognized that there was a fundamental link between what a country's governance was and what that country valued. Now, today, I think many of us have a tendency to take the Founding Fathers and what they created as a fundamental break with the classical political tradition of people like Plato and Aristotle and medieval philosophers like Thomas Aquinas. But I think that's not the best way to read what the Founding Fathers were up to. And I think you can see this in the writings of one particular Founding Father, who is not as well known as some of the other ones today, but I think is highly, highly underrated, and may in fact be the most important of the Founding Fathers. And that would be John Adams. For one thing, John Adams is the most American man possible in so many respects. He started from humble beginnings as a poor farmer in rural Massachusetts, but worked his way up through the social ladder with hard work and determination and all that American stuff. Also, he always said his whole life that if he could get his way, he would just go back to his home in rural Massachusetts and work on his farm with his family, but his country needed him, so he needed to keep doing what he's doing. Great guy all the way around. Family man, strong family man, had a deep love for his wife and kids, and he never owned any slaves. So, great guy. But more than that, he was also a very profound thinker. And his ideas had a very strong impact on the early American independence movement. In fact, in 1775, John Adams published a short essay called Thoughts on Government, in which he laid out his thoughts on government. And people in John Adams' times recognized this short essay as kind of an encapsulation of the American independence spirit and the ideas of those who were advocating for American independence. Because remember, around this time, the country was divided. About half of Americans wanted independence, the other half, not so much. So John Adams, in his Thoughts on Government, captured the ideas of what the Americans seeking independence were after. In his Thoughts on Government, John Adams sets out to try to find the job of a good government, because he says that when we know the job of a good government, when we know what government is for, we can know what the best kind of government would be, because the best kind of government would be the government that best did the job it's supposed to do. And we might today think that an American founding father would probably say something along the lines of the best government is the one that brings the most amount of liberty and freedom to its people and helps its people do whatever they want. But that's not what John Adams says. You see, John Adams, in Thoughts on Government, says that the job of a good government is to bring the most amount of happiness to the greatest number of people. But interestingly, he defines happiness. He says that the happiness of man, quote, consists in virtue. So for John Adams, the job of a good government is to create virtue in the citizens, and in doing so, lead them to happiness, because man's happiness is found in virtue. This is a fundamentally classical political idea. Plato said the same thing. Aristotle said the same thing. Thomas Aquinas said the same thing. All these thinkers said that the job of good government is to lead a people to happiness through virtue. So John Adams is perfectly aligned with the classical political tradition here. And I think maybe this should make us take pause and think deeply about whether or not the American founding was really as revolutionary as we think it is. I mean, we tend to assume, I think today, that before the American founding, there was the classical political tradition kind of grounded in natural law theory and Christian ideas, and then you have the Enlightenment, and you have the American founding grounded on Enlightenment ideas of people like John Locke and Thomas Hobbes and all those people, and that was a fundamental rupture from the way things were done before. But the fact that John Adams is drawing back to people like Plato and Aristotle here seems to suggest that it was a bit more nuanced than that. Maybe, just maybe, the American founders didn't see themselves as doing something totally new. Maybe they saw themselves as actually acting within the political tradition that had defined Western civilization for 2,000 years. Maybe the real revolutionary part of the American Revolution wasn't that they were implementing new principles, but that the American founders were just implementing principles that were already there. Maybe America, from its founding, was not really about unbridled liberty. Maybe America's love of liberty was actually early on subjugated to a deeper love for virtue, liberty for the sake of virtue. It's just a thought, but I do think that we should think more deeply about what the values of the American founding really were. And if you want to think more deeply about a lot of things, I recommend subscribing to my YouTube channel and liking this video so that I can grow and share more videos like this one with other people. Thank you, and God bless.